The basement door clicked shut with a sound that would haunt Sarah Chen for the rest of her life. Not because of the lock sliding into place, but because of what came after, the soft, satisfied laugh from the woman on the other side. The woman wearing Sarah's husband's shirt. "Comfortable down there?" Natalie's voice dripped with false sweetness through the wooden door. "Don't worry, Marcus will be home in a few hours. I'll tell him you're visiting your sister again. He believes anything I say these days." Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her belly, 7 months swollen with the baby Marcus didn't know she was carrying yet. She'd been planning to tell him tonight over dinner, had even bought a little onesie that said Daddy's co-pilot because Marcus loved aviation. The onesie was still in her purse upstairs, in the house she'd lived in for 6 years, with the husband she'd loved for 8. The house where his mistress now apparently had keys. And the authority to lock the actual wife in the basement. "Natalie, please." Sarah kept her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her throat. "This is insane. Just let me out and we can forget this happened." Another laugh, sharper this time. "Forget? Oh, Sarah, you still don't understand, do you? This isn't some impulsive moment. I've been planning this for weeks. Ever since Marcus told me he was thinking about ending things with me to work on his marriage." The words were bitter, mocking. As if he could just use me and throw me away. As if I'd let that happen. Sarah heard footsteps receding up the stairs, then the upper door closing too. The basement fell into dim silence, lit only by a small window near the ceiling that let in weak afternoon light. Her phone was upstairs in her purse. The basement door was solid oak, installed by the previous owners who'd apparently been concerned about security. Ironic that it now trapped her instead of protecting her. The basement was unfinished, concrete floors and exposed beams, filled with storage boxes and old furniture they'd been meaning to donate for years. Sarah sank onto an old armchair, her mind racing through impossible scenarios. Marcus wouldn't be home for hours, he'd texted that morning about a client dinner running late. Natalie had obviously known his schedule. How long had this been planned? How long had Natalie been in their house, learning their routines, plotting this? The baby kicked hard against her ribs as if sensing her distress. Sarah closed her eyes and focused on breathing, on staying calm for the child growing inside her. Panic wouldn't help. She needed to think. What Sarah didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know in that moment, was that this basement had secrets the previous owners never mentioned. Secrets that would change everything. Because 6 months ago, when Marcus had hired a home security company to install cameras after a string of neighborhood break-ins, the technician had made an unauthorized addition to the system. That technician had been Sarah's younger brother, David Chen, a cybersecurity specialist who'd never trusted Marcus. Who'd noticed things Sarah was too in love to see, the way Marcus's eyes lingered on his phone, the sudden work emergencies that came up during family dinners, the expensive receipts for restaurants Sarah had never been to. David had installed hidden cameras throughout the house without telling his sister. Every room, every angle, all feeding to a secure cloud server only he could access. He'd been gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to show Sarah what her husband really was. He'd never imagined the cameras would record something like this. Sarah heard movement upstairs, footsteps pacing back and forth. Natalie was still in the house. Still in Sarah's home, wearing her husband's clothes, probably sitting on her furniture, drinking from her mugs. The violation of it burned through Sarah's chest like acid. She stood carefully, one hand supporting her belly, and began examining the basement with new focus. There had to be a way out. A window she could break, a weak point in the door, something she could use to free herself before Marcus came home to whatever story Natalie had prepared. But as Sarah searched through the dim basement, as Natalie paced upstairs planning her next move, neither woman knew that across town, David Chen's phone was exploding with security alerts. Motion detected in basement. Unauthorized entry. Door lock engaged from inside. David pulled up the camera feeds with hands that had gone cold with dread. And what he saw made him grab his keys and run for his car, already dialing 911. Because Natalie wasn't just keeping Sarah in the basement. The cameras showed her in the kitchen, methodically going through cabinets, pulling out cleaning supplies, prescription bottles, anything that could be dangerous. She was talking to herself, words the cameras caught clearly. If she won't stay away from Marcus, if she won't just leave like she should have months ago, then I'll make her leave. Permanently if necessary. And when Marcus finds her, when he sees what his precious wife did while he was at dinner, he'll finally understand that I'm the only one who really loves him. Natalie was holding a bottle of Sarah's blood pressure medication, the prescription Sarah took daily because of pregnancy complications. She was holding it and smiling, and pouring pills into her hand. David's car screeched out of his parking garage, his phone on speaker as the 911 operator took down information. But even as he drove, breaking every speed limit, he knew he might not make it in time. In the basement, Sarah had found something. Behind a stack of old moving boxes, there was another door she'd forgotten about, the one leading to the old coal chute that had been sealed off decades ago. The door was painted shut, probably hadn't been opened in 30 years. But Sarah was 7 months pregnant and locked in a basement by her husband's mistress. She'd open that door with her bare hands if she had to. She grabbed an old screwdriver from Marcus's forgotten toolbox and began working at the paint seal, her breath coming faster, her baby kicking restlessly against her ribs. Above her, Natalie's footsteps had stopped. The house had gone silent in a way that made Sarah's skin crawl. That's when she heard the basement door unlock. Natalie was coming down. Sarah shoved the boxes back in front of the coal chute door, hiding her escape attempt, and turned to face the stairs just as Natalie appeared at the top, backlit by the kitchen light. She was carrying something in her hand, something that glinted in the dim light. A glass of water. And pills. So many pills. I brought you something, Natalie said, her voice pleasant now, almost cheerful. You must be so uncomfortable down there. These will help you relax. Help you sleep. Sarah's blood went cold as she understood. Natalie, don't do this. Whatever you think you're accomplishing, I'm accomplishing exactly what I need to. Natalie descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. See, here's what's going to happen. You're going to take these pills. You're going to fall asleep. And when Marcus comes home, he's going to find you down here, unconscious from taking too many of your own medication. Stressed about the pregnancy, overwhelmed by his long hours at work, you had a breakdown. So tragic. So understandable. She smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Sarah had ever seen. And while you're in the hospital recovering, while Marcus is racked with guilt over not seeing how much you were struggling, I'll be there. Supportive. Understanding. The woman who was there for him during his darkest hour. By the time you're released, our relationship will be so solid that you divorcing him will feel like mercy. You're insane, Sarah whispered. I'm in love. Natalie corrected, still approaching. And unlike you, I'm willing to fight for what I want. Now take the pills, Sarah. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Sarah's mind raced. She was 7 months pregnant, slower, more vulnerable than she'd ever been. Natalie was younger, fitter, desperate. If this came to a physical confrontation, Sarah wasn't sure she could win. Wasn't sure she could protect her baby. But she could try. Okay, Sarah said quietly, holding out her hand. Give me the water. Natalie's smile widened with triumph. She didn't see Sarah's other hand slowly reaching behind her, fingers closing around the screwdriver she'd left on the armchair. She didn't see the camera hidden in the ceiling beam, recording every word, every movement, every admission of intent. She didn't know that David Chen was 3 blocks away, tires squealing around corners, phones still connected to 911, police dispatch already sending units to the address. She didn't know that her perfect plan had been documented from the moment she'd first locked that basement door. What Natalie knew was that she was finally going to win. Finally going to get rid of the obstacle standing between her and Marcus. Finally going to have the life she deserved. She stepped closer, close enough for Sarah to smell her perfume, expensive, cloying, the scent Marcus must have been coming home wearing for months. Good girl, Natalie cooed, extending the glass and pills. Just take them and this will all be over soon. Sarah's fingers tightened on the screwdriver. Her baby kicked hard, as if giving her strength. And then everything happened at once. The sound of sirens erupted outside, growing rapidly louder. Natalie's head whipped toward the basement window, confusion flooding her face. Sarah didn't hesitate, she threw the water glass hard at Natalie's face and lunged backward, putting distance between them, protecting her belly with both hands. Natalie shrieked, water and glass shards spraying everywhere. She stumbled, caught herself on the stair railing, and turned back to Sarah with rage twisting her features into something monstrous. You bitch! You called someone. How did you? The front door crashed open upstairs. Heavy footsteps thundered through the house. Police. We received a 911 call about this address. Natalie froze, pills scattering from her hand across the concrete floor. Sarah could see the moment realization hit her, the moment she understood her plan had catastrophically failed. But instead of surrender, something darker crossed Natalie's face. If I can't have him, she whispered, neither can you. She rushed at Sarah, hands reaching not for Sarah's throat but for her belly, fingers curved into claws, intent clear in her eyes. Sarah tried to dodge but her pregnant body was too slow, too ungainly. She felt Natalie's nails rake across her side, felt herself falling backward. David Chen appeared at the top of the basement stairs like an avenging angel, taking them 3 at a time. He grabbed Natalie from behind, yanking her away from Sarah with force that sent her sprawling across the concrete. 2 police officers appeared behind him, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Stay down. Hands where we can see them. Natalie scrambled backward, her eyes wild, pills still scattered around her like evidence of intent. You don't understand. She's trying to steal my life. Marcus is mine. We're in love. One of the officers knelt beside Sarah, helping her sit up carefully. Ma'am, are you injured? Do you need medical attention? The baby, Sarah gasped, her hands on her belly, feeling for movement. Please, I'm 7 months pregnant. She tried to, she wanted me to, we know, the officer said gently. We have footage of everything. Your brother called it in. Medical is on the way. David was beside her now, his face pale, hands shaking as he helped support her. I'm sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner about Marcus. I should have, you saved my life. Sarah gripped his hand hard. You saved both our lives. The EMTs arrived within minutes, checking Sarah's vitals, monitoring the baby's heartbeat. Strong and steady, they assured her. Your baby is strong and steady. Sarah closed her eyes and let herself cry for the first time since that basement door had clicked shut. Natalie was being cuffed, still screaming about love and betrayal and how Sarah had ruined everything. Marcus will never forgive you for this. When he finds out you had me arrested, when he knows what you've done, ma'am, you have the right to remain silent, one officer recited tiredly. I suggest you use it. They led Natalie up the stairs and out of Sarah's house, out of Sarah's life. Sarah listened to her shrieks fade into the distance and felt something crack open in her chest, not her heart breaking, but something harder. Something that had been compressed for months, maybe years. Her marriage to Marcus had been broken long before today. She'd just been too afraid to see it. Mrs. Chen? A detective had appeared, a kind-faced woman in her 40s with graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. I'm Detective Morrison. I need to ask you some questions about what happened here today. Sarah nodded, accepting David's help to stand, to move to a more comfortable seat. The EMT stayed close, monitoring her blood pressure, the baby's heartbeat, ready to transport her to the hospital if needed. The cameras, David said to the detective, pulling out his phone. I have everything. From the moment Natalie locked Sarah in the basement until you arrived. Every word, every action. It's all recorded on a secure server. Detective Morrison's eyebrows rose. You have audio and video of the entire incident? Including her confession of intent. David's voice was hard. including her trying to force medication on a pregnant woman, including her attempting to assault Sarah and the baby. The detective looked at Sarah with something like awe. "Mrs. Chen, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've never seen a case this thoroughly documented. Between the camera footage and the physical evidence we've collected, the DA is going to have everything they need." Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. She can't claim it was a misunderstanding? Can't say I'm lying? With this evidence? No. The cameras don't lie. Detective Morrison pulled out a notebook. "Now, I need you to walk me through everything from the beginning. Take your time." Sarah told it all. How she'd come home early from a doctor's appointment, planning to surprise Marcus with dinner and the pregnancy news she'd been holding for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. How she'd found Natalie in their bedroom, wearing Marcus's shirt, making herself at home in Sarah's life. How Natalie had simply smiled and said, "Oh good, you're here. This makes things easier." And then locked her in the basement before Sarah could fully process what was happening. She said she'd been planning it for weeks, Sarah recalled, her voice steadying as she spoke. She knew Marcus's schedule, knew when I'd be home. She'd been in our house before. Multiple times. Detective Morrison wrote everything down, occasionally asking clarifying questions. David provided the exact timestamps from the footage, creating a minute-by-minute timeline of Natalie's actions. By the time Sarah finished her statement, 2 hours had passed. Marcus's car pulled into the driveway, and Sarah watched through the window as her husband stepped out, confusion clear on his face at the police cars parked in front of his house. He'd gotten a call from the police. They'd told him there was an incident at his residence and he needed to come home immediately. He had no idea what he was about to walk into. Sarah found she didn't care about his reaction anymore. The man who'd let this happen, who'd been so consumed with his affair that he'd never noticed his mistress was unraveling, who'd broken every promise he'd ever made to her, that man's feelings were no longer her concern. Marcus burst through the door, his eyes immediately finding Sarah on the couch, surrounded by EMTs and police. "Sarah. What happened? Are you okay? Is it the baby?" "The baby is fine," Sarah said calmly. "No thanks to your girlfriend." Marcus went pale. "What? What are you talking about?" Detective Morrison stepped forward. "Mr. Chen? I'm Detective Morrison. Your wife was assaulted in your home today by Natalie Warren. We have Miss Warren in custody. I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with her." The color drained completely from Marcus's face. He looked at Sarah, then at the detective, then at David who was glaring at him with barely contained fury. "I don't understand. Natalie wouldn't, it wasn't serious." "She knew it wasn't serious. She locked your 7 months pregnant wife in your basement," David said, his voice cutting like a knife. "She tried to force medication on her. She attempted to assault Sarah and your unborn child. Does that sound like someone who thought it wasn't serious?" Marcus swayed slightly, gripping the doorframe. "Oh God. Oh my God. Sarah, I didn't know she would." "You didn't know because you didn't care to know." Sarah's voice was ice. "You were too busy sneaking around, lying to me, giving her keys to our house apparently, to notice that your mistress was mentally unstable. I never gave her keys. I swear, I don't know how she had them copied one of the dozens of times you let her in here," David finished. "Yeah, the cameras caught that too. 3 months ago, Marcus. She's been coming and going from this house for 3 months while Sarah was at work." Marcus looked like he might be sick. "What cameras?" "The ones I installed 6 months ago when I realized what kind of man you really are." David's jaw was tight. "I've been documenting everything. Every time you brought Natalie here. Every lie you told Sarah about working late. Every moment of your affair has been recorded and backed up to a secure server." The detective cleared her throat. "Mr. Chen, I'm going to need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement about your relationship with Miss Warren. Her attorney will likely try to claim you led her to believe the relationship was more serious than it was, that you made promises you didn't keep. I did make promises, Marcus said quietly, looking at Sarah with devastated eyes. Just not to the right person. Sarah felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold certainty settling into her bones. I want a divorce. I want you out of this house by tomorrow. And I want full custody of our child. Sarah, please, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Sarah stood carefully, David immediately moving to support her elbow. You made your choices, Marcus. You chose to cheat. You chose to bring that woman into our home. You chose to lie to me every single day for months. And your choices almost got me and your baby killed today. I'll make this right. I'll do whatever it takes. You can start by going with Detective Morrison and telling her everything about Natalie. Sarah headed toward the door, needing air, needing space from the man whose face she'd once loved more than anything. David will send you the address for my lawyer. Don't contact me directly again. Everything goes through attorneys from now on. She walked out of the house without looking back, leaving Marcus standing in the wreckage of the life he'd destroyed. The evening air was cool against her face, and she breathed deeply, feeling her baby shift and kick inside her. You okay? David asked softly, helping her into his car. No, Sarah said honestly. But I will be. At the hospital, they ran every test imaginable. The baby was perfect, heartbeat strong, measurements right on target. Sarah had some bruising where Natalie had grabbed her, some minor scratches, but nothing serious. Nothing that wouldn't heal. You were very lucky, her obstetrician said, reviewing the charts. Another few minutes with that woman and, well, you're safe now. You both are. Sarah's hand rested on her belly, feeling the reassuring kicks of her daughter. They'd found out the gender last week at the anatomy scan. A girl. Sarah had been planning to tell Marcus tonight over that special dinner that would never happen now. David brought her takeout from her favorite Thai place and sat with her in the hospital room, making sure she ate, making sure she rested. Her parents were on a plane from San Francisco, would arrive by morning. Friends were calling, texting, offering support and outrage in equal measure. But it was the call from Detective Morrison at 9 p.m. that changed everything. Mrs. Chen, I wanted to update you on the case. Natalie Warren has been charged with attempted kidnapping, attempted assault, attempted poisoning, and breaking and entering. The DA is also considering additional charges related to stalking and harassment based on the camera footage your brother provided. Will she go to jail? Sarah asked. With the evidence we have? Absolutely. Detective Morrison's voice was confident. The video footage is damning. Her confession about planning this for weeks, her attempt to force medication on you, the assault, any decent prosecutor will put her away for years. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling relief wash through her. Thank you. There's something else. When we searched Natalie's apartment, we found some disturbing materials. Photographs of you and Marcus, dating back months. A journal detailing her relationship with your husband and her plans to remove you from the picture. Shopping lists for various medications and cleaning supplies. The detective paused. Mrs. Chen, this wasn't an impulsive act. Natalie had been planning to hurt you for a very long time. Sarah's hand tightened on her belly. How long? Based on the journal entries, at least 4 months. Since Marcus apparently told her he was considering ending their affair. She became obsessed with the idea that if you were gone, he'd be free to be with her fully. 4 months. 4 months of Natalie stalking her, planning her harm, while Sarah had been obliviously going about her life, excited about her pregnancy, trying to save a marriage that was already dead. The journal also contains detailed information about your daily routine, Detective Morrison continued. Where you worked, when you left the house, where you shopped. She'd been following you, Mrs. Chen. Studying you like a project. Sarah felt cold. And Marcus never noticed? According to his statement, he had no idea. He claims the affair was purely physical, that they rarely discussed you or his marriage, that he thought Natalie understood it was temporary. The detective's voice held skepticism. Whether that's true or convenient revisionist history, I can't say. But what matters is that we have Natalie in custody and the evidence to keep her there. After hanging up, Sarah sat in the darkened hospital room, listening to the steady beep of the fetal monitor tracking her daughter's heartbeat. Strong and steady, just like the EMTs had said. Her little girl was a fighter. Sarah pressed her hand to her belly and made a silent promise. Her daughter would grow up knowing her worth. Would grow up understanding that love should build you up, not tear you down. Would grow up strong enough to walk away from anyone who didn't treasure her the way she deserved. The next morning brought her parents, bringing fierce hugs and angry tears and promises that she and the baby would never want for anything. Brought her best friend Jessica, who'd flown in from Portland the moment she heard. Brought a lawyer David had contacted, one of the best family law attorneys in the state. And brought Marcus, looking like he hadn't slept, standing in the hospital room doorway with flowers he had no right to bring. "Sarah, please, can we talk? Just for 5 minutes?" Sarah's father stepped between them, his voice hard. "You've said enough to my daughter. You need to leave." "Mr. Yang, I understand you're angry, but I need Sarah to know I never meant for any of this. You never meant to get caught," David said from his position by the window. "That's different from never meaning to hurt her." Marcus flinched. "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. I know I destroyed everything. But Sarah, you have to believe I never wanted you hurt." "I never thought Natalie would." "You never thought," Sarah interrupted quietly. "That's the problem, Marcus. You never thought about what your choices would cost. You never thought about me sitting at home alone while you were with her. You never thought about what would happen when your mistress decided she wanted more than you were giving her. You just took what you wanted and assumed there wouldn't be consequences. I was stupid. I was selfish. I threw away the best thing in my life for something that meant nothing." Marcus's voice cracked. "But I love you, Sarah. I love you and I love our baby and I'll spend the rest of my life making this right if you'll just give me a chance." Sarah looked at the man she'd married 8 years ago. Tried to find some remnant of the person she'd fallen in love with, the man who'd proposed on a beach at sunrise and cried when she said yes. But all she saw was a stranger who'd risked everything she valued for something he claimed meant nothing. "You had your chance," she said finally. 8 years of chances. And you chose to throw them away. I'm not giving you another one. Sarah, please, my lawyer will be in contact about the divorce and custody arrangements." Sarah's voice was steady, final. "I want this over as quickly and cleanly as possible. I don't want drama. I don't want a fight. I just want you out of my life." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Sarah's face stopped him. He nodded slowly, set the flowers on a side table, and left without another word. The silence after he left felt like relief. 3 months later, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby girl she named Emma Yang Chen. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, with her mother's dark hair and her grandmother's stubborn chin. She came into the world screaming her protest at the cold air and the bright lights, and Sarah fell in love instantly, completely, in a way that made every other love in her life seem like practice. David was in the delivery room, holding her hand, coaching her through contractions, cutting the umbilical cord when the moment came. Her parents waited outside, ready to meet their granddaughter. Jessica had flown in again, bringing gifts and support and fierce protective energy. Marcus wasn't there. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks before Emma's birth, quick and clean like Sarah wanted. Marcus had gotten supervised visitation rights once Emma was old enough, and he'd been ordered to pay substantial child support. The house was Sarah's, bought out with money from her trust fund that Marcus had never known existed. Turned out Sarah had her own secrets. Her grandmother had left her a significant inheritance when Sarah was 20, money she'd never touched, never mentioned, never needed to think about during her marriage. Money that now guaranteed Emma would grow up secure and loved and wanting for nothing. Natalie Warren's trial had been swift and brutal. The camera footage David had provided left no room for doubt or alternate interpretations. Natalie had been sentenced to 8 years in prison for attempted kidnapping, assault, and attempted poisoning. She'd been denied bail, deemed a flight risk and a danger to Sarah and Emma. In her final statement to the court, Natalie had screamed that Sarah had stolen her life, that Marcus had promised her everything, that she'd only been trying to claim what was rightfully hers. The judge had called her delusional and dangerous, and the sentence had reflected both assessments. Marcus had attended every day of the trial, watching in horror as the full extent of Natalie's obsession was revealed. The photographs, the journal entries, the detailed plans to remove Sarah from his life. He tried to speak to Sarah after the sentencing, had tried again to apologize, to somehow make her understand he'd never known, never suspected. Sarah had walked past him without a word. Some things were beyond apology. Now, holding Emma in her arms in the quiet hospital room, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. Hope. The absolute certainty that she and her daughter would be okay. "She's beautiful," David said softly, looking at his niece with wonder. "Absolutely perfect." "She's everything," Sarah agreed. "Everything that matters." Her phone buzzed with a message from Detective Morrison. "Wanted you to know, Natalie's appeal was denied today. The conviction stands. You and Emma are safe." Sarah read the message twice, then set her phone aside. She didn't need the legal system to tell her they were safe. She knew it in her bones, in the fierce protective love flooding through her veins, in the way Emma's tiny hand wrapped around her finger with surprising strength. They were safe. They were free. They were home. Marcus had tried to visit the hospital when he heard about Emma's birth, but Sarah's security detail, courtesy of David's paranoia and her father's money, had turned him away. He would meet his daughter eventually, under supervised conditions at court-mandated visitation. But not today. Today was for Sarah and Emma and the family that loved them unconditionally. Jessica came in with coffee and pastries, cooing over Emma with the enthusiasm of a devoted godmother. Sarah's mother followed with more gifts than any baby could possibly need, her eyes wet with happy tears. Her father stood in the corner, watching his daughter cradle his granddaughter, and Sarah saw something shift in his expression: forgiveness, maybe. Understanding. He'd never liked Marcus, had been proved right in his suspicions, and now he was watching his daughter build a new life from the ashes of the old one. "What you did was brave," he said quietly later, when it was just the two of them. "Walking away when you did. Not everyone has that strength." "I didn't have a choice," Sarah replied. "Not after what she did. Not after I saw what Marcus's choices almost cost us. You always have a choice." Her father touched Emma's tiny hand gently. "You chose yourself and your daughter. A lot of women would have chosen to try to make it work, to forgive, to give him another chance. You chose dignity instead. That takes courage." Sarah thought about the woman she'd been before that basement door locked. The woman who'd been so desperate to save her marriage that she'd ignored the signs of Marcus's affair for months. The woman who'd made herself smaller and quieter and more accommodating, hoping that would be enough to keep her husband's attention. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, wiser, someone who knew that love should never require you to diminish yourself. "I chose us," Sarah said, looking down at Emma's sleeping face. "That's all. I chose us over everything else." 6 months after Emma's birth, Sarah returned to work part-time as a legal consultant for domestic violence cases. Her experience with Natalie had given her a unique perspective on intimate partner violence and stalking, and she found herself drawn to helping other women navigate the legal system after similar traumas. She worked with prosecutors on cases involving hidden cameras and documented abuse. Helped women understand their rights when it came to restraining orders and custody battles. Spoke at conferences about the importance of believing victims and the devastating impact of gaslighting and manipulation. Her story had made national news: the pregnant wife locked in a basement by her husband's unhinged mistress, saved by her brother's paranoid security system. News outlets had called it everything from a true crime miracle to a cautionary tale about infidelity. Sarah had turned down most interview requests, wanting privacy for herself and Emma. But she'd agreed to one interview with a domestic violence advocacy group, wanting other women to know that survival was possible. That life after betrayal could be good, even beautiful. David had started a security consulting company specializing in domestic surveillance systems for abuse victims. His expertise and Sarah's testimony had created a niche market, women who needed to document their partner's behavior for legal purposes, who needed evidence to escape dangerous situations. Together, they'd helped dozens of women get the evidence they needed for restraining orders, custody battles, divorce proceedings. They'd turned Sarah's nightmare into a resource for others facing similar situations. Emma was thriving. 6 months old, chubby and happy, already showing signs of her mother's stubborn determination and her uncle's quick intelligence. She'd met Marcus twice under supervised visitation, brief encounters in a neutral location with a court-appointed monitor present. Marcus had cried both times, holding his daughter with shaking hands, whispering apologies she was too young to understand. Sarah had watched from a distance, feeling nothing but a mild sadness for what could have been if he'd been a different man. But he wasn't a different man. He was exactly who he'd always been, someone who took what he wanted without considering the cost, who made promises he couldn't keep, who broke everything he touched. Sarah had heard through mutual friends that Marcus was in therapy, trying to understand how his choices had led to such catastrophic consequences. That he'd joined a support group for people dealing with the aftermath of infidelity. That he'd sold the house because he couldn't stand living there alone. Good, Sarah thought without malice. Let him understand what he lost. Let him spend the rest of his life regretting the moment he first betrayed her. But she didn't spend her time thinking about Marcus anymore. Her life was too full of better things: Emma's first laugh, her first tooth, the way she lit up when Sarah came home from work. David's weekly dinners where he and Emma had increasingly elaborate conversations despite Emma's vocabulary consisting of approximately 3 words. Her parents' devotion to their granddaughter, the way they'd moved closer to help with childcare. Her new apartment, smaller than the house but infinitely more peaceful. The job that challenged her and helped others simultaneously. The slow, careful rebuilding of trust and the growing understanding that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. 1 year after the incident in the basement, Sarah stood in a courtroom as Natalie Warren's parole hearing was denied. She'd submitted a victim impact statement, detailing the ongoing trauma and fear, the nightmares Emma sometimes woke from as if sensing her mother's remembered terror. Natalie had lost weight in prison, her once pristine appearance now haggard and worn. When their eyes met across the courtroom, Sarah saw no remorse, only bitter resentment. Natalie still believed she was the victim, that Sarah had stolen what should have been hers. The parole board had deliberated for less than 10 minutes before denying release. Natalie would serve her full sentence. 8 years before she'd be free to walk the streets again. 8 years during which Emma would grow from a baby to a child, during which Sarah would build a life so solid and secure that Natalie's eventual release couldn't touch it. Outside the courthouse, Detective Morrison approached with a small smile. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected," Sarah admitted. "It's closure, I think. Knowing she'll be away for years. Knowing Emma and I are safe." "You're more than safe." Detective Morrison handed her a business card. "This is my personal cell. If you ever feel threatened, ever suspect she's trying to contact you from prison, ever need anything, you call me. Day or night." Sarah accepted the card with gratitude. "Thank you. For everything. You believed me from the start." "The evidence believed you," the detective corrected gently. "I just did my job. You and your brother made it easy with that camera system." David, waiting nearby with Emma in a stroller, caught Sarah's eye and smiled. Emma was babbling happily, oblivious to the significance of the day, focused entirely on the stuffed rabbit David had brought her. This was what mattered, Sarah thought. Not the legal victories or the prison sentences or the divorce settlements. This, her daughter's laughter, her brother's devotion, her own hard-won peace. Marcus appeared on the courthouse steps, looking for her. Sarah saw him coming and deliberately turned away, pushing Emma's stroller toward the parking lot without acknowledgement. She'd said everything she needed to say to Marcus months ago. There was nothing left to discuss. "Sarah, wait," Marcus's voice called after her, but she kept walking. David stepped between them. "She's got nothing to say to you, Marcus. Move on. I just wanted to thank her. For her statement. For everything." Marcus looked broken, defeated. "I wanted her to know I'm sorry." "She knows," David said flatly. "Doesn't mean she forgives you. Doesn't mean she wants to hear it. You made your choices. Now you live with them." Sarah didn't look back as she loaded Emma into her car seat, as she drove away from the courthouse and the ghost of her former life. In the rearview mirror, she saw Marcus standing on the steps, watching her leave. He looked small, insignificant. Once upon a time, that man had been her whole world. Now he was barely a footnote in her story. Emma gurgled from the back seat, and Sarah smiled. This was her world now, this beautiful, determined little girl who existed because Sarah had been brave enough to leave, strong enough to start over, fierce enough to protect them both. The cameras David had installed in that house had captured evidence that put a dangerous woman behind bars. But more than that, they'd captured proof of Sarah's strength, her survival, her refusal to be a victim. Every frame of that footage showed a woman who fought back, who stayed calm under pressure, who protected her unborn child with everything she had. Every second documented the transformation from wife to warrior, from victim to victor. Sarah had been locked in a basement by a woman who wanted to erase her. Instead, she'd emerged into the light stronger than ever, ready to build a future her daughter could be proud of. And that, Sarah thought as she drove toward home with Emma singing wordless songs in the back seat, was the only victory that mattered. The basement door had locked behind her, but she'd found another way out. And in finding that exit, she'd found herself.